Hello again. As I mentioned in the introduction to this course, one of the objectives of the course is to improve your skills in teamwork. And one of the really critical skills in teamwork is effective communication. So with that, we'll launch into effective communication. Effectively communicating is really a complex process. When you think about it, first of all, as a sender, we have to encode some information that we want to convey into words, and then we send that out through some medium, whether it be orally or in a written communication. And then the receiver needs to get that information, that input, and then decode it into his or her own experience and her own understanding. So the chances of misunderstanding that what one hears is not what one meant, what one understands, what the receiver understands is not what the sender meant. The chance of that being imperfect is great. So let's dive into that a little deeper. When you hear something or you see something, we go up through what's called the ladder of inference. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously we go through that. So you go up the ladder by selecting information from what you hear or see, then you add meanings from your past experiences, you make assumptions from which you draw conclusions, from which you develop beliefs, upon which you take actions. In the communication process, the selection process, the different past experiences and different assumptions all make what is meant to be sent and what is understood different. Here's a description of that. As you can see, first of all, there's observational data. From then you select from that data, you add meanings, you make assumptions, draw conclusions, you adopt beliefs, and then you take actions based on those beliefs. That's what, as I said, is called the ladder of inference. One of the problems is that psychologists have proven that we tend to seek out information that confirms what we already believe and screen out information that is contrary to what we believe. This is called confirmation bias. Thus, when we hear someone, we select information based on this bias. So as the illustration shows, what we see depends on where we stand. In a physical manner, when I was school business manager at Adrian Public Schools in Michigan, I was talking to a woman, another fellow employee who was about 5'2". And her husband happens to be 6'4", and so they really see things differently based on where they stand. So based on our past experiences, we develop mental models. Mental models are deeply integrated assumptions, generalizations, or even pictures or images that influence how we understand the world and how we take action. Mental models are how we see the world work. And upon these models, we develop theories in action, okay? Now, the scientific method of creating a hypothesis and then testing that hypothesis to see if it's true, this applies to mental models and one beliefs as well as physics. Now, I tried to explain this to very strongly held opinionated people, I should say people with strongly held political beliefs, they frankly were not too interested in this. They understood and believed what they understood, and they were not interested in listening to anything else. But to really know the truth, we need to seek out disconfirming data, test our hypothesis, test our assumptions, check our facts, invite dialogue, invite collaboration, and really see if what we believe is actually true. If upon going through that test and we find that what we believe is really, really true, we should more firmly believe that. On the other hand, that if we don't understand that or don't believe that, doesn't turn out to be true, we need to discard what we believe. It's sort of like you hold your hand or your idea, in your hand. and you based on this belief and this assumption and this so, and if this turns out to be untrue and this turns out to be false, we need to let that idea go, and really look for a better working idea or a better mental model. Now, this doesn't mean that we need to agree with the disconfirming data or whatever liberal sources or abandon our conservative principles. In the case of the folks that we were talking about, the staunch Republicans. But based on doing that, we can better understand our opponents. We can sharpen our arguments. And sometimes we find we're wrong, and we need to change our conclusions, our prescriptions. Now, since we all have different experiences and their different perceptions, it is helpful to get a group of people to discuss these things. And we're likely to generate more ideas and lessen the likelihood of groupthink, particularly if we have some diversity of opinion. You don't want to always have yes people involved in a decision making. You know, particularly if you're a leader, you have all yes people. You're just like in an echo chamber. You want to have people who test your assumptions, who challenge you a little bit, make you think. There's a saying that if two of us think exactly the same way, one of us is irrelevant. But there's, in the United States particularly now, there's a big push for diversity. We want to have diverse this and diverse that, just for diversity's sake. And I'm not that big on diversity just for diversity's sake. In a group, when you're trying to make a decision, you need people there to bring something to the party, some expertise or some viewpoint that's pertinent to the discussion at hand. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just pick someone off the street for a big professional discussion? Yeah, if they don't bring anything to the party, they don't have much to add. So now, one way to get down to the root cause of a problem or to fully understand something is to ask the question why. In fact, there's what's called the 5 whys technique. You continue to ask the question why until you get the real reason. For example, in this example shown here, the Washington Monument was deteriorating. So the question why is asked. Well, because harsh chemicals are used on them. Well, why are harsh chemicals used? To cleaning up after pigeons. Well, why? Pigeons hang around to eat all the spiders. Spiders? Why? Well, spiders find a lot of gnats near the monument. Gnats are little bugs. Why? Well, gnats are attracted to the lights at dusk. Why? Well, the timing of the lights doesn't change with seasons. Oh, so once you diagnose the problem or the cause of the problem, then it's easier to design a solution. Well, maybe we should just set the lights so that they go off at daylight and come back on when it comes dark. So that's just an example, but this why technique can be used in just general conversations. Sometimes people will say, well, I don't like, in the United States, I don't like Trump. Well, why? Well, you dig down deeper and deeper and deeper, and you learn more of the people, why the people believe that. Or I like international trade. Well, why? Well, because with trade, we get more choice of products. We have better opportunity to specialize and so forth. The questions of why, the 5 whys, can be a very useful tool. But let's talk a little bit just about the theory of dialogue. Really one of the famous people in discussion about dialogue is a quantum physicist, David Bohm. And he really, in his articles and things he wrote, really talked about using dialogue to understand the underlying assumptions underlying our individual and collective beliefs. And through collective reflection on these assumptions, then we can get down to the more truths. We might find that there's blind spots, so there's some things that are incoherent in things we believe. So the hope is that collectively we free ourselves from those and have a collective better understanding and harmony. So dialogue asks people to listen without judgment, to reflect on their own thoughts and feelings, respect differences, and seek a deeper level of understanding. Now, for this to happen, we must create a state of relaxed alertness. In other words, create an environment of low threat, high challenge, because participants must feel safe to take risks. If you're going to expose your underlying beliefs and assumptions, you may find out you're wrong, and you need to be comfortable in doing that. You need to be in a safe environment to doing that. There's a whole idea of downshifting, that when you're threatened, you downshift and you go into a defensive mode. It's a psychophysiological response. So that really slows down or blocks the opportunity to truly dialogue, to really get down to your underlying thoughts and feelings and beliefs. So we want to create a setting of non-judgmentalness. Judgmentalness is holding an opinion, a perspective, and so forth, but non-judgmental, being non-judgmental is setting aside an opinionated perspective, maintaining an objective focus about what is seen, heard, and experienced, providing concrete, observable, specific facts or data statements, and anticipating so forth. So the degree that which people are willing to take risk is in direct proportion to the degree of safety they perceive to exist in the environment. So to make it safe for group members, you got to be respectful. Balance appropriately the time and attention spent on group relationship and group work. In other words, you're not just totally working, you're really working on also the relationship. You're setting aside temporarily one's own opinions and point of view. You're maintaining an objective focus about what is seen, heard, and experienced. Okay. Note the similarities between this table we just shown and the judgmental is table. In essence, judgmentalness creates an unsafe environment, so we want to avoid that. Okay. So now in a dialogue, you really need to have more a group of equals. Now it's a little bit difficult in this class. I'm the instructor and you're the students. However, let's be real. I'm learning too. Not only am I learning how to do this class, but I'm learning about this proposed project, this proposed touring company. And so we're on the learning journey together. And so I want you to feel free to challenge some of my ideas. Now, one of my ideas is I had that proposed tour that I talked about for the Rotary. Is it too fast? Is it we try to go too far? Those are reasonable questions, and those are things that we need to be talking about in this process. I'm thinking about renting a van similar to what we rode in and on our Baltic bicycle tour. But is renting a van the best means? Would be more appropriate to go by, public bus or train? Would it make more sense to buy a vehicle? Does it make sense to rent a van along with driver, or does it make sense to rent the van simply and have our own driver? And those are all kinds of questions that you should feel free to ask, and we'll explore those kinds of things. Just because I had an initial idea doesn't mean it's always a good idea. I hope you feel free in this discussion to really challenge me and each other. Obviously, we hope to do it gently and hopefully by the use of why. Why do you believe that? Why do you think that? What experience you have that leads you to believe that? What facts do you have to support that idea? And together we'll come up with a consensus on what we should think is the best way to do things. Okay. So one of the ideas is that you not only need to approach these things from your own perspective, but you also need to be thinking, what's the other person's perspective? And then one of the people that I've listened to on this kind of thing is talking about what's called a macrocentric view. It's sort of like viewing things from up from a balcony up above and watching the process to see what's how are things actually being done, how are people interacting. So this is really kind of a back and forth deal. You have one perspective, then another perspective, and you hopefully come up with a better understanding of it all. So in short, the entire repertoire of its abilities are called into play in dialogue. We have to set aside judgmentalness. We need to shuttle these perspectives. We need to listen. We need to do some paraphrasing, and we need to inquire into how the question is even framed. And obviously, sometimes just need to pause and think. Now, this is put into a little bit of a chart when we look at comparing a dialogue versus debate. A debate is you're kind of opposing sides, got sort of butting heads, try to disprove the other person and show them that they're wrong, and winning with your point of view. But a dialogue is not about winning. A dialogue is finding out truth, finding out what's best, what will work the best. And in our effort to put together a business plan, obviously, we would like to have a touring company that is likely to work. We don't want to do this as a just an exercise. This is real life. Hopefully, we can put together something that will increase the understanding between the United States and Eastern Europe, and hopefully we can create some employment by some well-paid employment by some of the LCC graduates or students, and hopefully you'll take this seriously, because this is real life. This is we're doing the real thing. So the next video is going to be on listening. We talked up above here about group paraphrasing and listening. Listening is a skill that is really very rarely taught, and it's something that we need to learn how to do better. In the United States and in many other countries, there has developed a great polarization between people, not only between Republicans and Democrats, liberals, conservatives, but one religion versus another religion, blacks and whites, and gays and straight people, and however you can identify you, it's polarizing you from someone who is identified as something different. And people have stopped listening to each other carefully. So this is an very important task, not only in real life, but it's going to be important in our group discussions, in our dialogues in this class. We're going to need to learn how to listen to each other so that together we can learn the most. So with that, stay tuned.